Hey everyone, and welcome to Sasquatch Theory. In this podcast interview, we have Jay, and he had a Dogman encounter in West Virginia with his brother. Jay also had an experience in Florida one day, and he wanted to talk about these experiences and encounters with us, so I hope you guys are ready for it. The thought of Dogman is certainly a frightening thing. A lot of people don't believe in Bigfoot, but they are certainly skeptical of Dogman. What are your thoughts about Dogmen, and do you think they exist? I have heard a Dogman before out in the forest, and I know a lot of people think that I have all kinds of stories, but it's true. A lot of this truly happened to me, and it's frightening. I did see a hellhound one day, and I think that's a little bit different, but it could be the same thing as a Dogman. I really do believe that certain people are more prone to have experiences and encounters than others, and it could be something supernatural or it could be merely just a coincidence. If you guys enjoy Sasquatch Theory, please follow the channel on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, whatever it may be, and I would certainly appreciate it. Alright guys, with all that being said, let's dive straight into Jay's cryptid encounters from the state of West Virginia and from the state of Florida. All right, Jay, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Great. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for asking. Jay, if you would, tell me a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're from, and your Bigfoot encounters and experiences from the very beginning, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name's Jay, and I was raised in northeastern Maine through my early teen years, and then moved to Florida. So, in Maine, we learn to hunt, and basically, it's a very wooded area. So you learn a lot about the animals and kind of habits and everything like that. So very comfortable in the woods, that kind of thing. Same thing with Florida. Moved down there in the mid '80s and graduated high school there, and then moved to college in Ohio, and that's where I had my first experience. And it was crazy. It was basically going from 1990 to 1991. My brother and I were home on Christmas vacation. So my brother is 2 years older than me, but he went in the service and did 2 years active duty. And when he got out, I had just graduated high school, so we entered college as freshmen together. So we were actually on our way back to Ohio from Florida, Central Florida, and we were in West Virginia. And it was the first week of January, and we had to report back to school for Monday morning class. And essentially, we would drive. It was about a 14-hour drive. So we would switch on and off. When you get fuel or coffee or any kind of thing, we would switch off drivers. And it was one of those nights. It was very, very cold, but crystal clear in the sky. Like you could see stars, throughout the whole sky. So beautiful night. Not a lot of snow on the roads, just kind of a little bit on the sides. And we were driving. We were listening. I'll never forget it. We were driving, listening to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, "Running Down a Dream." And I was in the passenger seat. It was a little two-seater Mazda with everything we had in the like right behind the seats there. And as we were driving, my brother was driving. I was in the passenger seat. I don't really sleep well when I'm in a passenger seat, but yeah, we were driving, and I can see, like, kind of out of the peripheral vision on the left there, this massive. I thought it looked like a wolf, but it literally came to the median. So I want you to imagine a highway, two lanes going each way. It's a highway in West Virginia, and not there's not really no lights other than the cars. We hadn't seen a car in miles, and essentially what I saw was this animal jump from the far left all the way on the left median, which is the other lane, basically the other lane of traffic going the other way. And as we approached it, we were probably 300 yards from it when it got to the side of the road. And I'm literally now glued onto it, looking at it. And I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to hit it, because it jumped. And when it jumped, it landed right dead center in between the two traffic lanes, basically. And it stood up. It stood up on its hind legs. And I thought it was a wolf. But It couldn't have been a wolf. It jumped again, and I thought we were going to hit it. Literally had its jaws open, like it was trying to bite the vehicle we were in, and we just missed it within, I don't know, maybe a foot, it seemed like. And so as we go past it, I whip my head around to look out the back window, and my brother hits the brakes, and the red brake lights light up what we could see there, and there was this creature, and it was literally, it had to be no less than, I don't know, 8 feet, 7 or 8 feet tall, and it was standing on two legs. It had huge shoulders and what looked like hands and not paws. It was furry, gray, kind of black and gray, if you will, and just a massive head, big tail, furry tail. And I literally was in shock. I looked at my brother, and at the same time we said to each other, "Did you see that? And what was that?" And I'm sure we threw a few expletives in there, but essentially we looked at it for the next, I don't know, hour and a half. As we were driving, we're like, what was it? A dog? Was it a wolf? It couldn't have been a coyote. It was way too big. Well, what was it? It wasn't a bear. So we went through trying to figure out what it was. And I'll never forget that as long as I live. And it was something we had no idea. There was no internet back then. There was no way to research these things and figure it out. There were no radio shows or anything like that talked about that. And when we were trying to figure out what it was, we thought, well, it looks like a wolf man, or like a werewolf that we see in the movies. Back then, this was 1991, the beginning of 1991, and nobody talked about this stuff then. You were looked at like you were a lunatic if you talked about any kind of these creatures like you would see in the movies, and if you thought they were real. Or so we kept it to ourselves. And what's interesting is I didn't realize this until years ago, years and years ago. So think about this. It's 2024 now, and that was 1991. So quite a long time went by. But about 2 years ago, my brother, who was the driver that night, we were talking about Sasquatch, and he said, "Do you remember, Justin, that night? Do you remember that night we were driving back and through West Virginia?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I need you to listen to something." And he pulled up he sent me a link to a podcast, and I listened to it, and they mentioned the name Dogman. And that was the first time either of us had ever heard the term Dogman. But of course, now we look back, and that's exactly what it was. So, and that's not really where the story ends there. Little did I know, my brother had guard duty through the reserves and in West Virginia. And when he met his unit during his first drill in January, he was with his buddies, and one of his fellow soldiers was sharing a story, and they happened to be having a break for lunch, and he could overhear him telling the story of how at a rest area, he and his dad got out to take a break, to take a leak, if you will, and they heard these animals like growling and howling and running through the woods. And the hair went up on their neck. They literally could see these animals that looked like wolves, but they were massive. And there were three of them running through these woods. They jumped in their vehicle and took off out of pure fear. And as my brother was listening to it, he said, "Oh my gosh, this is kind of what we ran into." So long story short, that was my first experience ever with any kind of cryptid. And yeah, it lasted with me forever. I'll never forget it in my life. So that's the first time. And then the next time I'll never forget this. We were in Florida. This was May. It was Mother's Day, 2020. I was living in a town called New Smyrna Beach, and I decided we were going to rent a pontoon boat for my wife for Mother's Day and my two kids. They were teenagers, young, early teens. And we went down the St. Johns River from Lake Beresford. There's a marina there, and we rented this pontoon boat. You take a little bit of a right-hand turn, kind of down into the middle of Florida, what's called the St. Johns River, and it's called the St. Johns Management District. Well, this takes you into the old South. I mean, old trees, old undergrowth, and you're going along the river, and it looks like something out of prehistoric times. There's no houses, there's no cabins for miles. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful ride. Very peaceful, gorgeous. And it happened to be alligator mating season. And so we were listening as we were kind of fishing and having some fun and, just trying to show my kids nature and let my wife relax. And so as we're going, we cut the engine off and we were fishing, and there was a very, very, very slight current, maybe a mile an hour kind of current, and we were barely creeping along, and very dark waters in that river. And we were casting a few things, and I was talking to my little son about what type of fish he can catch, and I hear this, and we're maybe 15 yards off the bank, just kind of coasting, if you will. And I hear this commotion inland, just a few yards, maybe 10 or 15 yards in shore, right out inside the bank. And again, you're talking about old Florida growth, right? Palmettos and mossy oaks and big trees and palm trees, those kind of things. But it's very hard to see through it because it's so thick. And the commotion I hear, it sounds, I thought it was a big hog. And I could see as it moved, I could see a very dark black color, but only through little bits and pieces. But you could see the shaking of the brush and the undergrowth there shaking. And then so I'm trying to my eyes are on it, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, it must have been a hog. And I don't know, 15, 20 seconds later, I hear a smack of a wood hitting a tree. And I was actually a college and a semi-pro baseball player at one point in my life, and the sound of that wood hitting wood was so loud, it literally I shrunk, almost like I felt like a firecracker went off next to me, and you kind of a little bit there, because it scares you, it startles you. Well, it hit it, and I looked, and I couldn't see anything. I know where it came from roughly, but I didn't see it hit it, but I could hear it. And then, I look over, and again, I don't see anything. We float another 15 or 20 yards maybe down, and I hear the commotion going alongside of us, like it's right next to us, but running fast. And it goes, it stops, and another smack, it hits again. And this time it was, if not the same loud, maybe a little bit louder. Well, now my kids are looking at it. My wife is looking over there. We know right where it was. And we are all looking, our eyes are dilated, looking, oh my gosh, what was that? The sound was so loud. It echoed through the woods. It echoed off of us, kind of bounced off the water sound as well. And then my wife looks at me and says, "Hey, honey, what is that? What is that?" And then literally, as we coast a little more, I'm now getting back behind the cockpit of the boat. I'm thinking maybe I should just start it up and kind of move out of here. And sure enough, we get one more hit, another 15 or 20 yards down as we floated. And that's when everybody in the boat said, "That's it." My kids started to get really scared. They huddled up against my wife. And the fear, I could see it in their eyes. And for me, I could tell that was something hitting that. And it had to be something with hands to be able to swing a bat or swing wood and hit. And it was so powerful. At this point, I could see the black mass pushing through the undergrowth, and almost like bluff charging in a way. I could feel that sense of anger and resentment of me being there, and all of my instinct told me, get out of there, get out of there. So I start the motor, and we cruise. We leave the shore. We kind of cruise back. It's about I don't know, another 2-hour ride, if you will, to make the full loop back to the back to the marina. But it was one of those things that was so real to me. I've heard now all these different podcasts, your show, which I love, and some of the other shows that I think are really, really high value and good content. And you hear a lot about these sounds of what it sounds like when wood hits wood. And I'm here to tell you, that was so powerful that you literally felt it hit your bones, that sound of that wood. And so, yeah, that's it. That was, those were the two experiences I had. And I now live we moved from Florida to Utah 4 years ago out here. it's not a joke. People out here, they're like, well, of course I've had an experience. My cousin saw a Sasquatch last Christmas. Or out here, it seems very more real in the Western U.S. out here and in the mountains. And whereas in the East Coast, people kind of giggled at you if you talked about it. They're kind of made jokes, but it seems like it's a lot more accepted out here, as a lot more knowers, if you will, or believers out here, it seems. So but yeah, those are the two experiences I had. I remember both of them very clearly. I can still hear the sound of the car when we saw the Dogman, and I can tell you, I still can smell the air during and hear the sounds of those big bull alligators, the rattling sounds they make when they're mating, like it was yesterday. And those things, I don't think they'll ever get out of my mind. They're burned in forever. So I don't know if there's any questions you have. I'm happy to answer.
Okay, Jay, thank you so much for sharing your encounters with me. And if you would, describe the features on the Dogman that you encountered on the highway.
Yeah. So it was coming at me at a 3/4 angle, right? So from the way it was running towards the road, I could see its head, and it was running on all fours at that point. When I got to the side of the road, it jumped and stood up. And then it looked to me like a character out of a comic book or a movie. It had massive shoulders, like a bodybuilder, like an adult male bodybuilder. The upper side of the body, the shoulders, the front area and the chest were thick and very, very muscular. They were not lean at all. The thighs on this thing, it had really large thighs, and the legs on the back look like a dog, a traditional dog's leg, the way they bend. But the front, the arms, they look like arms, like mine, like yours. And they were just big, full of, obviously hairy, right? To me, it looked like the color of an Arctic timber wolf, or one of those old things you see in museums. I don't know if they're extinct now. I think they were called timber wolves at the time, but just a big furry coat that way. And the snout was long. The teeth were canine style teeth, very, very like a long, and like a dog would be. Ears like a dog, snout like a dog, but definitely was not a dog. I just don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah, so were the muscles pretty big on this creature?
Yeah, yes, they were. There was no question. Like, you look at somebody like a linebacker and an NFL style athlete. They're built the way their bodies are built. They're very, very strong in the upper body. And this is what that looked like. That stuck out to me to this day. I could definitely see the rounded definition in the shoulders, and that's what stuck out to me. Like this has arms. The way the arm bent was like my arm, not a way a dog's arm looks. And the paws kind of look. This had hands, and I I don't know how else to explain it. I don't know to estimate weight. I mean, I know when I can drive down the road right now and at nighttime, right? And I can go and look on the side of the road. I may see 4 or 5 deer standing together. I can tell immediately within a microsecond if it's a buck or a doe, and I can give you an approximate weight because that's how much time I've hunted in my life. You just get used to, oh, that's about 180 pounds. And this was massive. This to me probably looked like maybe 500 or 600 pounds. Just big, thick, strong animal. And it was not lean like you would look like a big German Shepherd or something like that. It was just thicker, and that body weight, that mass, probably I had to say maybe 400 or 500 pounds, maybe a little bit more.
I appreciate you for sharing that. Could you see its
Yeah.
eyes?
No, I mean there was the brake lights, right? I mean, I could see the eyes. Yeah, they were there, and they had like an orangey red hue to them, but I wasn't sure. And to this day, I don't know if that was because of the brake lights. That's really all we could see it in, was the brake lights.
And what feeling did you get whenever you saw the creature? What do you think it was up to?
So it's funny. My brother and I talk about this from time to time. I don't know. It was coming at us. So the left side of the highway, in other words, the oncoming traffic, that I could see, the way the median, it went back for, I don't know, 500 or 600 yards, maybe 1,000 yards before you got to this deep forest area. And it was running down from the forest down the side of this I don't know, the side of the highway is a better way to say it. There's really no other way to say it. It was cleared. It was very wide, that way, very open, and it was running down at an angle. Like it must have seen us coming from so far away. It was running at an angle right toward us. So if my car, if you look at a clock and it's 12 and 6, and we're at the 6 position going towards the top of the 12, this was coming at us from about 10 o'clock at an angle. So by the time we got to got up to it, it had jumped, and in a split second, it jumped again. And I thought, oh my gosh, it looks like it was trying to bite us. So what it was doing, I have no idea. But it was not happy. It was very angry looking. I was scared. I don't fear anybody. I don't fear things very much in my life at all. And especially at that time. And I just looked at that as, oh my gosh, that's attacking us. And when we took off, we both had that feeling. We were scared. We thought, oh my gosh, thank God we didn't hit it. And yeah, that's all I can tell you. It was that kind of feeling.
Yeah, so it kind of seemed like it was coming at you guys.
No question. No question. There was no other cars on the road. Um, we hadn't seen a car in, I can't tell you how long. This was probably 2 or 3 in the morning, because we would drive through the night, pull an all-nighter kind of driving thing with the two of us. So there was nobody on the road. It was in the middle of West Virginia, on Highway 77. And yeah, it was a very bizarre feeling, very bizarre.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you think these creatures come from? Do you think they're natural on this planet, or do you think there's something else going on?
When it comes to dogmen, I think it's something else. I think these were developed by our government, um, for some kind of use. Don't know what. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe some animal experiments and training that they were trying to use them to do certain things in combat. Or that wouldn't surprise me. I know we've done that, with other animals, where we've experimented on them, and that's been going on since World War I, and by our government and others. But I don't know. I think these happen to have the ability to procreate, because there seems to be all over the country, people have experienced these things. So it doesn't add up to think that they're just in one area, or there's a clan or a small. I mean, they seem to be out there, but I think they're an experiment gone wrong. And I don't know how there's any other way to reel them back in, or even if the government wants them reeled back in. I don't know that. I would imagine they would, to not be embarrassed if something got out, or someone got hurt or injured, or one of these things was captured or killed and kind of found out. But there's no way for me to tell if that's just my opinion. But it seems as reasonable as any reason why these things would exist.
Yeah, I've heard that before from other people, and they call them assets. And it could be possible that they're trained to seek out certain individuals. Maybe, they can let them smell the shirt, and these things take off looking for whoever that is. And I've heard they use them in war, but it's really hard to say.
Could be. Wouldn't shock me at all, quite frankly. So, and we may not have that answer for who knows how long. But I know what I saw. I know what my brother saw with me that night. There's no question in my mind, what that looked like, and how fast they were, and how big they were. And I mean, it was hard. We didn't want to tell anybody. We were embarrassed for all these years, and not embarrassed, but we were scared people were going to make fun of us, or it would impact our careers. Or like, to this day, I'm not giving you certain information that might tell people exactly who I am or my brother is. But it's a little hairy for us to this day, scary kind of thing, because I don't know. I mean, it's more acceptable today than it ever has been. But I'm sure I'm not the only one who's ever told you that. That they're a little hesitant to make it, shout it from that mountaintop kind of thing. But yeah, crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you give me a hint as to what you do as a profession, or maybe you can tell me off air?
Yeah, no, I'll tell you. I'm an executive. I run a company, and It's a well-known company actually, and so yeah, it's
Okay. Well, I appreciate you for
yeah,
sharing that on here. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, you'll have to share with me off air exactly what you do, because on the email I was kind of wondering. I was like, oh, this guy's got a high status.
Yeah, yeah, no, thank you for that. But
Hmm.
yeah, I don't have any problem telling you off air.
Okay. No, cool. And yeah, I think I was like, I'm gonna tell you one of my stories. I was around 12 years old. I was sitting here. It was around summertime, probably in July. It was really hot, so I had the window open. I was living at my parents' house, and I was just sitting there on my desktop computer, chatting on like AOL or MySpace, whatever kids did at that time. And I was watching Family Guy on Cartoon Network. I think it was like a Wednesday night around anywhere from like 9 to 11 p.m. And like I said, I had that window open, and all of a sudden I hear this werewolf howl, and it's the loudest thing I've ever heard. It sounded like a monster, like something off of Jurassic Park. It was that loud. And the best way I can compare it to is like a giant PA system at a concert. Like it was that loud, you could feel it in your chest. But this thing was just, I don't know, so frightening, just like a loud. I mean, like what you hear on those Hollywood movies, but just amped up. And as soon as that thing finished doing its howl, I heard this scream like. So I was a little kid, so I went up to the window and I slammed it shut, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's a monster out there! My brother's playing a prank on me. Somebody's got a PA system out there in the woods or something." But I was terrified. I didn't go back outside. I never knew what it was till I had Bigfoot encounters here, and I started hearing about Dogman. And I was like, "Oh my God, they are real." I've never seen one, but I've heard it. Sometimes when you just hear something, it can be just as prolific as an encounter, like an eye sighting.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's for me, and I think my brother, I can actually accurately tell you how he felt at the time and now. The feeling was we didn't know. I'd never heard anybody talk about that. Never. It was a movie or it was a comic book for when it came to a dog man, and it was always werewolf. And I'd never even heard the word dog man until relatively recently, right? So now the more you talk about it, the more these podcasts have grown in popularity, and people feel, okay, I'm okay to talk about this. And now it's been sitting inside of people for years. Sometimes, like me, for 30 years. And who would have ever? I would have never shared that. And this gives you the forum to get it off your chest, and then you hear other people that have gone through something similar, and yeah, you feel the experience. And then when it came to the one in Florida on Mother's Day in 2020, I'm to this day, I say to people, I am a knower. I have no doubt in my mind. I don't. There's not 1 second of hesitation because I know what I saw, I know what I experienced. I've been in the woods enough to know what can swing a bat or a piece of wood or what can do that. And in that remote area, and what? Oh, I forgot to tell you. What's interesting about that is I got on the internet right after when we got back. We parked the boat, drove back to the house. I started researching, and what I found was in the St. Johns River area in Central Florida, there have been Sasquatch sightings going back for decades. It's well known actually, and I don't know why that is. Maybe because it's so well protected and preserved in there, and nobody goes back in there. The access is really tough. But if you look at it, if you go back and look, and you look up the St. Johns River Sasquatch, just Google it, you'll see people have been talking about it for years. And I know in my heart, I know exactly what I saw. I know exactly what I heard. I know exactly that feeling that hit through my body. My kids felt it, and yeah. So it's yeah. When you hear someone tell you another story and you've been through it, you're like, wow, man. Okay, wow. And you understand it. It's you don't think people are lying to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got in contact with several people around here who have had eye sighting encounters with Dogman, and we set up like video interviews, and they always back out. I mean, it's a real story, but they're really hesitant to talk about it. It's hard for people to open up and talk about Bigfoot, but when it comes to Dogman, even like most of the Bigfoot community doesn't believe in it. I get that all the time in the comments. People are like, I believe in Bigfoot, but I don't know about Dogman. I'm still leaning towards maybe
Yeah.
it's not real.
Well, I get it. I was right there. I mean, you know, I don't know. Growing up, I don't know that I didn't believe in Bigfoot. I don't know that I did. I probably was like any other kid from my generation.
Hmm.
We all saw the Patterson Gimlin, and there were people that, oh no, that's not real, and then there were plenty of people who said it was, and you really didn't have much of an opinion on it until recently. And I think in the last decade and a half, with the growth of podcasts and people's ability to communicate via the web and have interactions that they can, you know, you can either say, yeah, you're telling me the truth, or no, you're a liar. Well, you got to know, if you know me, or if you know like people that I know, that I have absolute trust in their integrity, and someone who they've never lied to me before. Why would I call them a liar in that situation? And then that's the problem. That creates its own problem. Nobody wants to be thought of as a questionable integrity. So if they tell you a story and someone says, oh, he's lying, well, all of a sudden you become a liar. And that's what makes people fear. And that's my opinion. But that's how I felt for years. But I think now I think there's enough people out there, tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands, that have had interactions or experiences or sightings, something with either of these types of creatures, that I think it's much more wide stream. Now, conversely, I don't think a Bigfoot is made by the government at all. I think it's a natural creature. I think it's a hominid of some sort. I think it's, a creature can bleed. I think it could die. I don't know, but I definitely believe they're real. I don't necessarily believe that they can, hop in and out of space, or I don't know, because I just don't have enough experience with that. But something's got to be visceral, big, strong, fast to move through the woods like that, and move the palmetto. If you know anything about Florida, those palmettos are like razor blades, and to be able to run through them and move them like that just doesn't happen. It's just the humans, when we hunt in there, you try to avoid them and you move very gingerly through there, or you get hurt. You can get yourself hurt. And this thing just blew through it like it was nothing. So I think they're very real. I think they're very big, physical, strong creatures. And you know, yeah, I sure would love to see someone catch one day, or end up on an exam room table somehow. And maybe they already have, and we just don't know it. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, I seen a video years ago where somebody shot a dogman in the Middle East. I think it was in Israel, and they had it in the back of like a Nissan pickup truck, and this thing was like breathing like really fast, like panting really fast, and you could tell they shot it many, many times. But it's hard to say if it's real or fake. But apparently, these things are all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't ever want to see one of those again. I do want to see a Bigfoot again. I really do. I think I'm fascinated by him, because I think once you have that experience, you can't not be fascinated. I mean, unless it was a very scary thing for you, but or you have post traumatic stress from it. I don't. I look at it as I'm fascinated that these things have done what they've been able to survive and live where they live, in and around communities, but they're very rarely ever seen and experienced. But when you do, you can't forget it, kind of thing. So I definitely, I probably would like to see it maybe from 100 yards away. So maybe I'm in a vehicle, but I certainly wouldn't want to be surprised by one while I'm out hiking up here in where I live. But maybe if it was far away from maybe across a open area or something, or from a lake, on the other side of a lake, I'd love to see it. But up close and personal, they're I don't know. So maybe they can be aggressive, and I'm not sure I want that experience. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Every Bigfoot encounter I had, they went the opposite way. So, and they were close encounters. So it is pretty fascinating, especially when you already
Hmm.
know about them and you kind of don't believe. It really changes your mind and reformats things for you. But yeah, with the Dogman encounter, did you have any nightmares after that sighting?
I don't recall having nightmares. I was in school, and I was an athlete, and I had so much going on in my life that I don't remember having nightmares from that. So I can't say that I did. No.
Okay. And did anything strange happen after that encounter? Like anything weird, like supernatural?
That's a good question. So I, no, I don't think so. I mean, I had lost my father a few months earlier, but I'm a man of faith today. I think at that time in my life, I was probably always looking for some kind of sign, but I don't put the two together at all. So no, I can't say that I did.
Okay, I appreciate you for sharing that. I've heard stories where people encounter dogmen and like the next day their hair starts turning white or gray, things like that, or these things like
Mm.
come back into their dreams and speak to them, or they see another one in a different area and they go to another spot and they see another one. It's almost like they know where you're going to be at, which it can be impossible, but I don't know.
No, that wasn't me. I didn't have that. It was a one-time thing for me as it relates to that. So
Okay. And with that other encounter that you mentioned where multiple
yeah,
ones were seen, can you describe that or tell me about it?
yeah. So it was. It's really my brother's story to tell, but it was in West Virginia, and this it was a father and a son, and they were making their way back to where they were actually headed. They were on their route, and it was at nighttime, and they stopped at a rest area to go to the bathroom. And when they got out, they walked towards the woods to take a leak, and they heard this scurrying all three through the woods, and then the movement, and they could hear the sounds and the breathing, and then the howling, and then the growling, and they could see the movement of these things going, and it scared them, to their wits' end, basically, and they ran back into their vehicle, jumped in it, and drove off. And that was what my brother told me, that he overheard his fellow soldier sharing with his other guys in their reserve unit. And he knew right then. My brother knew right now. He got like this feeling, this cold feeling. His hair went up on his arms because he knew he had experienced something very similar. And um, yeah, he said that he explained that they went from running on four legs to running on two, and there's a very distinct difference when you hear it and the way that they move. So that's what scared him. Is everybody expects to see wolves or coyotes, right? But nothing that big on two legs, and that's what stayed with him. So again, you're talking about 1991, January 91. So who knew what these things were? No one knew. No one knew. And who would who would you know who would want to just volunteer that? I mean, it's a very scary situation. So yeah, he told me that story, and it really brought back the memory for me. It was very visceral. I still can smell the car. Man, I mean, even telling you, I get goose flesh just thinking about the feeling we had. I can even remember literally looking at he had cracked his driver's side window. He rolled it down about an inch or two to offset the defroster, and the windows were fogging and the heat. He was trying to find that balance back when the cars didn't have really good air circulation systems. And I just remember looking out the window, and I can capture the feel of that experience. And I remember the song. I remember everything. So yeah, it was very much stuck on me for forever and ever. Just thinking about it to this day.
Yeah, that is frightening. And you mentioned, I think it's called the St. Johns River.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Right there. You can look it up. Lake Beresford, Beresford, is the lake where we rented the boat, the pontoon, and then you travel up the lake, and there's an entryway into the St. Johns River from the lake, and it creates this big loop there. So you can look it up, and it was about probably 1.5 miles in, on the St. Johns River is where we had the experience.
Okay. And can you describe the features on the creature that you encountered?
Hard to tell you because I didn't see a head. All I saw was the movement of the body through the trees, and or through the palmettos and the scrub brush that's in there. So nobody had ever trimmed this stuff. This is pretty thick stuff in there, and it's miserable to walk through. Any of your listeners that are from Florida and have ever walked through those thick woods like that, that have never been burned or trimmed or cut or anything like that. It's miserable to walk through, and it's super super thick. Very hard to hunt deer in those areas. You kind of want to have an opener, a little bit more open area, so you can see animals coming and going. But I literally could see like blotches of color, like at different areas as it would run from, and it was going from my right to my left. I could literally see areas where I could see the color of the animal. And that's why initially I thought it was a hog, because that's what it looks like and sounds like when a hog, big hog, boar is running through the underbrush there. That's what it sounds like. But this was just much more violent, bigger, more um, body mass going through the area. So yeah, I can't. I wish I could give you more detail.
No, I appreciate you for sharing that. And I know you mentioned you think that Bigfoot has always lived here and Dogman's kind of been created, but do you think there's a connection between the two? Like maybe Dogman is a hybrid of Bigfoot mixed with some type of canine?
I don't. No, I don't, because just the pure features and looking at it from a biology perspective, there's really no crossover. Other than the fact that they have four appendages. Really, there's the muzzles are different, the head shape is different, canine structures are different. Um, Mass, physical mass is just very very different. I don't know that there's any crossover there at all. I know there's a tendency to probably assume there's some sort of link, but I can't make a link there.
Yeah, that's understandable. And do you believe you will have another encounter in the future? I guess that's hard to
You know,
say, but how do you feel
it's
about it?
hard to say, but I do spend a lot of time in the woods out here and kind of hiking and enjoying the outdoors here in Utah. And it wouldn't surprise me because people here see them. There's experiences quite often here in where I am in Utah, and a lot of mountains, a lot of area for them to kind of do their thing. So I said the chances are higher I would experience one here than I would say if I was maybe back in Florida. But yeah, I wouldn't mind it as long as it's from a little bit of a distance.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you ever experienced anything unusual where you felt like these creatures followed you back home? Anything like that? Like maybe you heard wood knocking in your area where you live at? Anything?
No, I don't. I don't. So where I live is about 6,000 feet elevation, and it's a relatively new area. But I haven't had anything I could say where I've heard or listened. I have a lot of owls where I am, but all of them sound like real owls. They don't. There's no really sound there that I could say, oh, that's not a real owl or any of that. But I listen for it. I can tell you, I go out of my patio and I listen at night, or in the real early morning when I hear owls. I kind of listen for it, but I haven't heard anything that would make me feel like they're near me or around me.
Yeah, that's fair. And have you ever seen a UFO, an alien, anything like that?
No,
Okay.
no.
Well, there is a Dogman mapping project. I'm not sure exactly what the name is, but somebody on the internet has some type of like Dogman sighting map. And I'd be curious to see if where you had that encounter at, maybe there's some other pins that have been dropped on the map nearby.
That's a great idea. I never thought about that. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I had it tied into my Google Maps, but now it's not there anymore. I'm trying to look it up on Google, but it's not coming up. Whenever I do come across it, I'll share it with you. And it's got a lot of reports. You can click on the pin and it'll tell you the entire story. And one thing that blew my mind is where I told you I heard that Dogman howl at. There's a
Hmm.
pin dropped in this same county. It's the only pin in the county, and it's like maybe like 5 miles from my house.
No kidding. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's. I think the way technology is going, and people are becoming more and more feel like they're free to share this information. It won't be long before we have kind of like we do with Sasquatch encounters. There's maps, there's organizations, there's all these things now full of resources that people can go look and try to validate. What did I experience? What was that? So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
it's coming that way.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I mean, I'm glad that you would allowed me to share my experience, and I appreciate you, you giving me that platform.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm glad you got in contact with me, and you did an excellent job at relaying your encounters and experiences. And yeah, it was a good podcast. So thank you so much for rising up and telling everyone what happened.
Okay, buddy. Keep spreading the message. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jay. You have an excellent evening, and I appreciate everything you did today.
Thanks.
Take care. All right, Jay, thank you very much for sharing your encounters with me, and they were certainly terrifying. I wonder what the canine creature was doing or thinking as it ran towards your vehicle and was trying to bite the car. I think it had full intentions of attacking you guys, but why would a creature like this that tries to remain undetected give away its position like that? It must have been driven by anger and malicious intent. There's a lot of strange things happening in West Virginia, and I wonder what is truly going on. This stuff is happening all over the world, but in certain areas of the world, it seems like they have a high fluctuation of strange encounters, whether it has to do with cryptids, UFOs, paranormal activity. It's really hard to determine, but many people say that this type of activity is associated with giants and mounds, and I think that's true. A lot of people have theorized, and even Jewish and Catholic leaders or people in high positions have said that giants create this type of activity because whenever they died, their body didn't have a place to go to. Hell wasn't created for them, and neither was heaven, so they're stuck in between. I mean, this could be an answer as to what is going on, and they did say that the giants had supernatural abilities, and it seems like the cryptids do as well. But anyways, I appreciate everyone for listening today. If you guys can, please like and subscribe and follow the podcast and the YouTube channel. I really appreciate everyone's support. Take care and be safe out in the forest.